All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. And as promised, folks, as we are beginning the month of August, the start of a new college football season is right around the corner. Like I said, I got plenty to talk about, and I want to get things started tonight in talking about my top 25 for the upcoming season. And of course, there's going to be some things that we agree upon. There's going to be some things that we disagree upon. But definitely, please feel free to drop some comments in the chat box to let me know how you feel that your favorite team is going to look and where they should be heading into this new college football campaign, which is going to begin in several weeks. For me, number one, I'm going to start off with a team that made the college football playoff last year and has consistently been around the top 10 for the last couple of years, but we've rarely seen them at number one for quite some time. But my top ranked team heading into this season is going to be Penn State. They made the college football playoff last year for the first time in school history, and they look like they're going to be once again in the mix to win the Big Ten. Got to the Big Ten championship game last year, have not won the Big Ten since 2016, but nonetheless, they get quarterback Drew Allar back. And of course, we know that Drew Allar did not play his best in Penn State's Orange Bowl loss in the college playoff semis and the loss to Notre Dame. But nonetheless, he's back for one more year at Happy Valley. And I think that could be a difference in Penn State having success this season if Drew Allar's going to improve. Now, nonetheless, under head coach James Franklin, you know, you always expect Penn State to run the football and run the football effectively. And I think the Nittany Lions are going to be able to do that once again. This time, you still got Katron Allen and you got Nicholas Singleton there. One thing that's going to hurt Penn State, they don't have a lot of speed on the outside. And that's something that has been a bugaboo of James Franklin throughout his time at Penn State. I'm not sure why he doesn't recruit more speed on the outside, but nonetheless, they are going to have to try to replace tight end Tyler Warren, and of course, easier said than done. Anybody who watched college football last year, they knew how important Tyler Warren was to this offense. But led by left tackle Drew Shelton, Penn State does have four seniors coming back on that offensive line. That's going to be big. We know that the Nittany Lions had themselves a stingy defense last year. Abdul Carter, one of the top picks in the NFL draft last year, he's gone. There's still going to be plenty of experience on that side of the football for the Nittany Lions with the likes of middle linebacker Dominic DeLuca and, of course, defensive end Danny Dennis Sutton. I think bringing over defensive coordinator Jim Knowles from Ohio State, and, of course, we saw how important the Jim Knowles was for Ohio State in helping them win the championship last year. I think he's going to be important for this Penn State defense that I do expect to once again be rock solid. And I think one game that a lot of people have already kind of earmarked on Penn State's schedule, you look at the 27th of September. They get Oregon coming to Happy Valley. That's a rematch of last year's Big Ten championship game. And of course, November 1st, we've got Penn State going to Columbus to take on Ohio State. And that's always been a bugaboo for James Franklin and company. Number two, I'm going to go in the SEC, and I'm going to go with Texas. Okay. And Texas already has shown that they were able to have themselves a seamless transition from the Big 12 to the SEC. Make no mistake about it. The Arch Manning era is here for Texas. Okay. We saw Texas get to the SEC championship game last year and they lost. But now you've got Arch Manning at quarterback, okay? And this young man is looking to live up to the hype, if you will, due to that famous last name, all right? And of course, Arch Manning brought his fair share of hype and then some with him to Austin. But nonetheless, you still got Sark as head coach for the Longhorns, and he's always got a commitment to the ground game. So you could expect more of that this year with Quay Weisner and CJ Baxter. Now, Texas was third in the nation defensively last year. And it's going to be interesting to see if we're going to see more of that from the Horns this year. Middle linebacker Anthony Hill Jr., I think, is an SEC Defensive Player of the Year candidate. You also have to like what you see out of senior free safety Michael Taft. And as far as my opinion goes, Michael Taft is a football player's football player. Okay, that's the type of intensity that he plays with. Okay, you got defensive end Colin Simmons, and I think this Longhorns defense is going to be up for the challenge. Texas has a very interesting schedule. Okay, everybody is already talking about August 30th when they go to Columbus to take on Ohio State. They've got Florida, who they've got to take on in Gainesville this year. Of course, their annual meeting with Oklahoma down in Dallas, November 15th. Texas goes to Athens to take on Georgia. And of course, if you remember last year, Georgia got the best of Texas twice. They beat them in Austin in the regular season, and then they beat them again for the SEC championship game. And then, of course, the Longhorns finish up at home against Texas A&M. Now, number three, I'm going to go Clemson. And for me, some people out there, they continue to write off Dabo Swinney and his Clemson Tigers, but Clemson continues to go out there and prove their doubters wrong. Last year, Clemson flew under the radar. People talked about other teams that were going to win the ACC. And when it was all said and done, guess what? It was Clemson who was flying the ACC banner into the college football playoff. And guess what? Clemson's got a legit team. Cade Klubnik might be the best quarterback in the ACC. You've got junior wide receiver Antonio Williams. Also, keep an eye out for sophomore wide receiver Bryant Wesco Jr. And then I like this Clemson defense with Wade Woodaz at middle linebacker, Sammy Brown at outside linebacker, and then keep an eye out for junior defensive end TJ Parker, as well as junior safety Khalil Barnes. And the bottom line is, if you didn't buy stock in Clemson last year, it's going to be a little bit higher right now. But guess what? You still might want to go ahead and buy that stock. Clemson has a chance to really set the tone for their season in their first game of the season when they host LSU. Bookends, if you will, with SEC opponents. They start with LSU and then they finish up at South Carolina. And of course, South Carolina went to Death Valley last year and upset Clemson. So that's going to be a dandy right there. And speaking of LSU, I've got the Bayou Bengals coming in at number 4. And the expectations are always high in Baton Rouge for this team. They had a 4-loss season last year. They didn't make the college football playoff. And of course, there are plenty of folks around there that follow this team that are disappointed. I think LSU is going to have a better season this year. You've got a senior at quarterback in Grant Nussmeier. Running back Caden Durham, I think, can be an impact player for this team. And then wide receiver Aaron Anderson. Is he ready to be LSU's next great wide receiver? Middle linebacker Whit Weeks for Louisiana State. I think he has what it takes to be an SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be in that mix. Also, if they can get Harold Perkins healthy this year on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to be big for the Tigers. Just 3 seniors starting for LSU defensively, but nonetheless, this team is fast. They've got speed, and I think Brian Kelly and company, they've got something to prove out there this year. LSU has a very daunting schedule. Like I said, they started Clemson. They've got to go to Florida. They host Florida. They got to go to Ole Miss. They host South Carolina. They host A&M. They're at Alabama in November, and then they're at Oklahoma to finish the regular season. Number 5, I'm going to go with Miami. And of course, last year, Miami had the look of a playoff team, but when it was all said and done, the Canes couldn't even win the ACC because they couldn't even get to the ACC championship game. All right. So Mario Cristobal and company, they had a 10-3 campaign. Their quarterback last year, Cam Ward, first overall pick this year in the NFL draft by the Titans. So what did Mario Cristobal do? He went to the transfer portal once again. This time he got former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. And of course, there were some people late last season who felt that Carson Beck was going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. And of course, Beck suffered that arm injury in the SEC championship game against Texas. Afterwards, he transferred, and now he's looking to improve his stock and show that, you know what, he just was not a product of the system in Athens. 4 seniors in the offensive line for Miami. That's going to be important as they look to protect Carson Beck. I like this Miami defense with the likes of defensive end Akeem Mesidor. And the Canes, they're going to be once again in the mix to win the ACC. They're going to be right there, okay? Number 6, I'm going with Carson Beck's former team in Georgia. And of course, had Carson Beck not decided to transfer, I think I had Georgia a lot higher than this. But you know what? Kirby Smart always finds a way to keep his team in national title contention, and you can expect more of the same this year. And of course, the Carson Beck injury late last season made way for Gunnar Stockton. The Georgia offense did struggle in that Sugar Bowl loss to Notre Dame. Nonetheless, it's a situation I think, having more reps with the starting unit will help Gunnar Stockton. And I think the biggest thing for Gunnar Stockton is not go out there and try to win the game by himself. Rely on the people around him. Georgia always has a strong running game, and you could expect more of the same with the likes of Nate Frazier this year. And then you look at this stingy defense, and I think, Georgia, they have linebackers, they have guys in their secondary, and they always know how to bring it. Keep an eye out for senior cornerback Dalen Everett, as well as junior outside linebacker CJ Allen. Number 7, I'm going to go Ohio State here. And for the Buckeyes, of course, they head into the season as the defending national champions, but they've got a lot to replace. Will Howard was only there for 1 year at quarterback for the Buckeyes. Is it going to be Julian Sayin that's going to replace him as the starter? We got to wait and see. Ohio State also lost both of their top running backs to the NFL, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. You can expect a heavier dose of James Peoples this year. They also lost their offensive coordinator. Okay, Chip Kelly left to become the OC in the NFL for the Raiders. So now steps up former Ohio State wide receiver Brian Hartline. Nonetheless, you still got Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver. And Jeremiah Smith is in that rare breed because last year as a true freshman, he dominated so much, especially in Ohio State's postseason run, that as a freshman, he could have been a top 5 pick in last year's NFL draft. I think he tries to build off of that phenomenal freshman campaign and continue to be one of the best players, not only in the Big Ten, but as in college football as a whole. Also, Jim Knowles, I talked about him leaving Ohio State to become the defensive coordinator at Penn State. So now in steps former Detroit Lions head coach Matt Patricia. And of course, Matt Patricia had made a name for himself on the defensive side of the ball, if you will, in the NFL with the New England Patriots. What is he going to do or be able to do for this Ohio State defense? We've got to wait and see. A lot of talent from Ohio State's, stingy defense last year is now in the NFL. You still got Sonny Styles at linebacker. You still got Caleb Downs at free safety. And Ryan Day is, I think last year's championship, took a lot of pressure off of him. He has been one of the better coaches in college football, and I think he continues to show that for his Buckeyes this year. Number 8, I'm going to go back to the SEC, excuse me, and I'm going to say Texas A&M. And for the first time in a long time, the Aggies finally look like they have the right guy to lead their program in Mike Elko. Of course, Texas A&M had a late season swoon last year. If not, we're talking about this team in the SEC championship game and possibly the playoff. You've got quarterback Marcel Reed, and of course, A&M is going to run the football with running back Le'Veon Moss, and it also helps for A&M that they've got 4 seniors up front on that offensive line. Also, keep an eye out defensively for outside linebacker Torian York, and overall, Texas A&M is looking at 6 starters that are seniors for them. That Notre Dame game on the 13th is going to be big for both Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Last year, we saw the Irish go down to College Station and squeak by Texas A&M. This time, the Aggies are going to South Bend, which should be a doozy. A&M gets Florida at home. They're on the road for LSU in October. And then, of course, traveling to Austin to end the season to take on Texas. Number 9, I'm going to go with K-State. They're one of those teams that are muddled, if you will, at the top of the Big 12. But I like what the Wildcats have returning with quarterback Avery Johnson, running back Dylan Edwards, and wide receiver Jace Brown. Then you got to keep an eye out for junior, middle linebacker Austin Romaine, who has the potential to be the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Now, aside from Romaine on defense, keep an eye out for K-State strong safety VJ Payne, as well as outside linebacker Desmond Purnell. Number 10, I'm going to go with Florida. 2024, was a tale of 2 seasons for Florida. They came in with expectations. They didn't live up to them. They had a tough schedule. They rallied to finish strong. And then, of course, their head coach, Billy Napier, got a vote of confidence from the administration in Gainesville, and it paid off. Florida finished the year as one of the hottest teams in college football, but they got to try to find a way to build off of that this year. DJ Lagway, is he going to be the real deal for Florida? And I think Florida's fortunes will go where DJ Lagway takes them. That's going to be the big thing. Senior defensive end Tyreek Sapp has the potential to be one of the best edge rushers in the SEC. Now, for the Gators, they've got a lot of hype behind them, but they also have one of the toughest, if not the toughest, schedules in the nation. They're at LSU this year. They're at Miami. They've got Texas at home. They're at A&M. They always take on Georgia and Jacksonville. And then you look at the last month of the season. At Ole Miss, they're home for Tennessee, and they're home for Florida State, all in consecutive weeks. Good luck. Number 11, I'm going to go Notre Dame. And okay, I don't know about you, but I feel like college football is always a better place when the Fighting Irish are relevant. And of course, after last year's surprising loss in September at home to Northern Illinois, Notre Dame got on a roll and they played like their hair was on fire. And even though they lost the championship game to Ohio State, they gave it their all. And I think Notre Dame's going to look to build off of that. They won a school record 14 games last year. They won both the Sugar Bowl and the Orange Bowl. And Marcus Freeman has quickly asserted into being one of the better head coaches in college football, a 33-10 mark already. Notre Dame knows as a football independent that their margin of error as far as losing games and trying to make the playoff is very slim. So I think Notre Dame, they play with that pressure, they live up to the moment, and they've got a good squad coming back this year. Healthy Jeremiah Love at running back along with Jadarian Price, and I expect Notre Dame to run the football a ton. And then this defense. I know that they lost their defensive coordinator, Al Golden, to the Cincinnati Bengals, but you've still got a Notre Dame defense that was 11th in the nation last year. You still got Drake Bowen at middle linebacker. And the Irish might have themselves the best secondary in college football. We're talking about Christian Gray and Leonard Moore at cornerbacks, along with safety Adon Schuler. And like I said before, Notre Dame's got to take care of their business because they don't have a conference championship game. They're at Miami at the end of this month. They've got A&M at home next month. They've got Boise at home next month, the defending Mountain West champs who also made the college football playoff last year. And then they also host USC on the 18th of October. Hopefully, that is not the last time that we see Notre Dame and USC meet. That is a big rivalry for college football, in my opinion. Number 12, I'm going to go with another team out of the Big 12 in Iowa State. We saw the Cyclones win 11 games last year. They got to the Big 12 championship game. We just saw their head coach, Matt Campbell, get an extension from the school administration at Ames. They're bringing back a ton of talent, which includes quarterback Rocco Beck, as well as running backs Carson Hampson and Abu Sama III. Also, keep an eye out for the Cyclones defense, which includes linebacker Cooper Abel and cornerback Jontez Williams. So now, number 13, I'm going to go with the defending Big Ten champs, and I'm going to talk about Oregon. Oregon, it was a seamless transition for them from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. They won the Big Ten in the first year. They went undefeated in the regular season, the only team that went undefeated in the regular season. However, they ran into a buzzsaw in the Rose Bowl, courtesy of Ohio State, an Ohio State team that they squeaked by during the regular season in Eugene. And of course, at that point, Ohio State was just clicking on all cylinders, and the rest was history. Nonetheless, Dylan Gabriel is now in the NFL. Oregon's not going to the transfer portal this time for quarterback. They got Dante Moore, who saw limited action behind Gabriel last year. But I'm looking at this Oregon running game. Jordan James is now in the NFL, of course. This time, Oregon did go to the transfer portal to get themselves a running back in the form of former Tulane back Mekhi Hughes, and I think he can come out there and make an impact for the Ducks in his first year. We're talking about a guy who, in 2 years at Tulane, ran for nearly 2,800 yards and was first team All American Athletic Conference in both of his years there. Defensively, I think the Ducks have what it takes to be special this year in the Big Ten with Brian Botcher at linebacker as well as defensive end Mateo Oyongalele. Now, Oregon has 8 of their starters on defense this year projected to be either seniors or juniors. That experience will help them, and I think the Ducks are going to be once again formidable in the Big Ten. For 14, I'm going to go Tennessee. I had them a little bit higher, but of course, it all started to unravel with that Nico Iamaleava controversy. Nonetheless, I think Josh Heupel has really righted the ship in Knoxville, and I think Tennessee has what it takes to consistently be a top 20 team. And I think they're going to make an impact this year in the SEC. Number 15, I'm going to go Arizona State. And of course, the Sun Devils enjoyed one of the greatest turnarounds of all time in college football. Who knew that all that Arizona State needed to do was a switch from the Pac 12 to the Big 12? And of course, Kenny Dillingham as their head coach really rolled up his sleeves and got nasty. Okay. Of course, Arizona State's got to replace Cam Scatterbo at running back. Kyson Brown has some big shoes to fill, but in my opinion, Kyson Brown just needs to worry about being Kyson Brown and not Cam Scatterbo. You got quarterback Sam Levitt. He's looking to build off of that season where he threw 24 touchdowns last year. Of course, some of that was predicated off of the running of Cam Scatterbo. You've got Jordan Tyson at wide receiver, one of the best pass catchers in the Big 12. You've got a lot of talent on defense, which includes the likes of linebacker Keyshawn Elliott, defensive end Clayton Smith, and cornerback Javen Robinson. And I think the Sun Devils are still going to once again be one of the top teams in the Big 12. We're not accustomed to seeing Alabama ranked this low. Okay, and I think things have changed now that Nick Saban has moved on to retirement. Kalen DeBoer is going to get things going in his vision, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Alabama's still good. They're just not Nick Saban good like we expected them to be or anticipated them being. What are they going to do at quarterback? Is it going to be Ty Simpson this year? We've got to wait and see. Alabama has to run the football better. They were 47th in the nation last year. What is Jam Miller going to do? Ryan Williams was one of the best freshman wide receivers last year in the country. Can he build off of that? You've got Deontay Lawson on this defense, but where are the leaders going to come from for this Alabama defense? That's something we always anticipated under Saban. Those defensive guys really stepping up and making an impact. And Alabama's got a very daunting schedule. They're at Florida State to begin the year at the end of this month, at Georgia next month. They've got Vanderbilt at home in October. And of course, Vandy pulled off one of the biggest shockers of all time last year when they knocked off Alabama. And of course, I think in that game, Alabama was a 30-point favorite, something like that. Of course, the third Saturday in October, Alabama welcomes Tennessee to Tuscaloosa. The Crimson Tide are out at South Carolina to end October. And of course, if anybody remembers that game last year, South Carolina gave Alabama their money's worth. And then you look at the November slate for the Crimson Tide. They begin the month. They're home for LSU. They're also home for Oklahoma, and then of course the Iron Bowl against Auburn. Speaking of South Carolina, I've got the Gamecocks coming in at number 17. Shane Beamer, South Carolina's head coach, has made the Gamecocks one of the most exciting teams to watch in the SEC because you never know what you're going to see. South Carolina won 9 games last year for the first time since 2017. They're looking to build off of that and try to get to the playoff. They barely missed out on getting to the playoff last year. Quarterback Lenora Sellers is one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the nation. It's going to be important because he can run the football. South Carolina's got to find a way to replace Rocket Sanders. He was so important to that offense last year. The Gamecocks were 16th in defense last year. We got to see if that trend continues, but definitely keep an eye out for defensive end Dylan Stewart as well as defensive back Jalen Kilgore. August 31st, okay, South Carolina against Virginia Tech in Atlanta. And I guarantee you that Shane Beamer has that game circled because his dad built Virginia Tech football. And you think about Virginia Tech, you think about the great Frank Beamer. Now, at number 18, I'm going to go with SMU. And of course, it was a good transition for SMU from the American to the ACC. They ended their time in the AAC or the American now by winning that conference championship in 2023, got to the ACC championship last year, and got to the playoff. Okay, and Rhett Lashley and company want to build off of that. You got quarterback Kevin Jennings, one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, and you got 7 starters defensively for the Mustangs. I feel like SMU snuck up on some people last year. They won't do it again this year, but they're still going to be a team to watch. Staying in the ACC, I'm going with Louisville at number 19. We saw Tyler Shaw, their starting quarterback from last year. get drafted in the second round of the NFL draft this year by the Saints. And they've got themselves another quality quarterback as Miller Moss fell into their laps. We saw Miller Moss have a solid season for USC last year. I think he's probably going to be the ACC's newcomer of the year. Louisville is loaded at running back with Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, and Kewan Brown. Wide receiver Chris Bell. I like this Louisville defense with the likes of Stanquan Clark at linebacker. You got TJ Quinn at linebacker, and you've got 8 seniors defensively for the Cards as they are going to be in the mix to win the ACC. At number 20, I'm going BYU. Had them a lot higher, okay, prior to the Jake Retzloff transferring. That changed a lot of things for the Cougars. Nonetheless, Kalani Sitake still has himself a good team that is going to be formidable in the Big 12. Number 21, I'm going to give Oklahoma the benefit of the doubt. Last year, a lot of injuries. Okay, we saw Jackson Arnold at quarterback transfer to Auburn, and I think the pressure is on Brent Venables this year. They went out and they got quarterback John Mateer for Washington State. What is he going to do with this club? They brought in former Cal running back Caden Ott as well. And I like R. Mason Thomas at defensive end for the Sooners. Okay, I really do. And I think Brent Venables has to find a way to get the most out of his team this year in the SEC. It's not going to be easy. Um, Oklahoma's got a daunting schedule. They got Michigan at home on the 6th of September, of course, taking on Texas in Dallas. They're at South Carolina in October. They've got Ole Miss at home to end October. They're at Tennessee to begin the month of November. They're at Alabama on the 15th of November, and then they host LSU to end their regular season slate. So good luck right there to the Sooners. 22, another team that has not been living up to expectations, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and that's the Trojans of Southern California. They're hopeful that year 2 in the Big Ten will be better for them. They went 7-6 last year. They were 4-5 in the Big Ten, and the bottom line is Lincoln Riley better do something because I'm sure that the folks that follow this SC program in the LA area are not happy. He's just 26-14 in 3 years at SC, which includes being 17-10 in conference play once you combine his time or USC's time in the Pac-12. Like I said, they lost Miller Moss at quarterback to Louisville. Is it going to be Jaden Mayava at quarterback this year for the Men of Troy? They got to find a way to get that explosiveness back on offense. And this is why you hired Lincoln Riley. Okay. We know that USC has not been good defensively. So they've got to lean on their offense if they're going to make an impact. So let's see if Southern Cal can live up to it this year. 23, I like the direction that Illinois is going under head coach Brett Bielema. And let's see if this team can be among the upper echelon teams this year in the Big Ten and possibly get to the playoffs. You got a senior at quarterback in Luke Altmaier. You know that Brett Bielema is going to want to run that ball. He's got 4 seniors on that offensive line. And this is a Brett Bielema type team, going back to his days, in my opinion, from his time at Wisconsin. I like outside linebacker Gabe Jacobs as well as middle linebacker Dylan Rosiak, and then keep an eye out for senior free safety Xavier Scott. So Illinois, they've got some chances if they could take care of their business against the teams that they're supposed to take care of. I think Illinois can hang around in the top 25 all season long and possibly sneak into the playoff. Number 24, I'm staying in the Big Ten. I'm going with another national power here, and I'm going with Michigan. And of course, last year we saw the Wolverines take their lumps on their head coach Sharon Moore in his first year. They went 8-5. This is clearly now his team, not Jim Harbaugh's team anymore. But Michigan has to get better with the forward pass. The Wolverines were just 131st in the nation in that category last year. They've got Bryce Underwood at quarterback. They brought in the former Alabama running back, Justice Haynes. And I think Michigan is going to play old school blue collar football. They're going to play it close to the chest, a lot of running the football, taking care of the football ball security, and they're going to lean on their stingy defense under defensive coordinator Wink Martindale. Now, for number 25, I've got a tie here. So I've got 2 teams. First and foremost, I'm going with the defending Mountain West champions, and I'm talking about the Boise State Broncos. They're going to look to win the Mountain West, yes, for the second consecutive year in their last year in that league before they shift over to the Pac-12. And of course, they lost their bread and butter from last year's team, Ashton Genty. But the Broncos got themselves some talent coming back. I like quarterback Maddox Madsen. They've got to find a way to replace Ashton Genty, which is easier said than done. We're talking about a young man who rushed for more than 2,600 yards on the ground last year. For running back Siri Gaines, he can't be Ashton Genty. He's got to go out there and be the best Siri Gaines that he could be. You've got a senior at tight end and Matt Lauder, who to me I think is the best tight end in the Mountain West, in my opinion. You've got quality seniors on the defensive side of the football for the Broncos. Keep an eye out for middle linebacker Marco Notariani, and then junior defensive end Jaden Morgan, who I feel could be one of the best defenders in the Big 12, but pardon me, in the Mountain West. Excuse me there. But nonetheless, Spencer Danielson and company will once again be formidable, not just in the Mountain West, but also I think they hang around in the top 25. And I also think that they have what it takes to once again be in the mix to get to the playoff. And finally, for that top 25 tie, I'm going to go with Baylor out of the Big 12. And of course, the Baylor Bears, they were able to bounce back from a horrid 2023 for head coach Dave Aranda, and they want to build off of that. Keep an eye out for senior quarterback Sawyer Robertson for Baylor. They've got themselves a strong running game with running backs Dawson Pendergrass as well as Bryson Washington. And then keep an eye out for wide receiver Josh Cameron. And then this defense, which includes middle linebacker Keaton Thomas and free safety Devin Bobby. I think Baylor can go out there and surprise some people and stay in that Big 12 race. So when it's all said and done, some teams that I did not put in my top 25 that I feel were right on the cusp, and I feel like they are going to be in the top 25 at some point this season. I like Indiana. I don't think that last year was a fluke for Kurt Cignetti and company. Also, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, the Lane train, is going to find a way to once again make some noise in the SEC. And I also like Eli Drinkwitz's Missouri Tigers team. But when it's all said and done, conference by conference breakdown, the Mountain West got one team in my top 25. And of course, Notre Dame, one of the only two football independents, they had another one. But when it was all said and done, the SEC, I put 9 teams in there. I put 6 from the Big 10. I put 4 from the ACC, and I put 5 from the Big 12. Of course, that doesn't mean that that is going to be the official breakdown when it's all said and done at the end of the season. But at the end of the day, that's what makes it fun because these guys got to go out there and they got to play those games on a Saturday to Saturday basis. Each year in the college football campaign, you're going to see teams that don't live up to the expectations, and you're going to see teams that are going to overachieve. And there's going to be some teams that I didn't talk about tonight that when it's all said and done, they're going to be in the top 25. And there's going to be some teams that I talked about in the top 25 tonight that when the season is over, we're going to sit back and say, well, how in the world was that team as bad as they were? But nonetheless, that's why they go out there and play the games. But with that, folks, that's my top 25 for the upcoming college football season. And I hope that you liked it. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you got something to say, please feel free to drop a comment in the box. I definitely appreciate it. And for all of you football buffs out there, this cascade of college football information is going to continue to come at you. Tonight, it was all about the top 25. Tomorrow, it's going to be about my upcoming preview for the college football season in the Southeastern Conference. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. If you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, you know what to do. Hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you're on the X, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, I will give you that follow in return. And the same can be said for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, you can check us out at Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the best sports debating groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Take care and be well.